Greetings. It's April the 22nd of the year 2024. This is episode 4 of Creek Boy Ronnie Holmes recounting his life for the sake of posterity and my children and grandchildren and really anybody. Just anybody. Life has been fun and I think I've had an interesting period for sure. And it's hard for me to get past high school. I've got a long, I'm going to be 70 in June, uh, and it's hard for me to just gloss over the time period of high school because it impacted me in a lot of ways. I can try to recreate the scene, and maybe you can understand it a little bit, and I feel that it was an important part of my makeup. Things that I adopted and dabbled and whatever. All right. So remember, high school is 1968 to 1972. Now, uh, wow. I mean, what a time period. It really was. And last episode, I talked about the rock and roll. The music, the influence, the energy, the just the just the society. Society was churning, and we were young kids, and very physical. Very physical. The boys and the girls, very very physical people. The area that I was raised in is steel mills and coal mines right on the Ohio River. Only about 45 minutes away from Pittsburgh. So it's my West Virginia experience was a little bit different maybe than somebody from in southern West Virginia. We call that down Hoopy, by the way. I don't know if they know that, but that's what we call it. But yeah, but the people around me, they were rough people. I mean, people were rough mill workers, steel mill workers, and they were hard men, and they were gruff, and they drank a lot, and and so that was a part of the culture going on around me, and a lot of Italians, a lot of Italian immigrants for the steel mills and even the mines and things like that. And so West Virginians and in that particular part with the industry and everything, sort of hard scrabble kind of people, and I liked them a lot. I still do. As soon as I go back home, I immediately feel like I never left. Immediately, it's just a wonderful thing, and I'm glad for it. And sometimes I wish I didn't leave, but I did. But I didn't leave because I didn't like high school. I'll tell you that. It was something. So in my freshman year, I went to Wellsburg High School, and it was it was a small school right in town. I walked to get there from 25th Street to it was around 12th or something like that. It wasn't very far, and 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 so after that we went in 1969. We went to the new school, Brooke County Consolidated High School, and all the kids came together and all that. And I'm telling you, it was like there was an explosion in in my mind, in my life. The way things transformed. I told you about the dress. They're very conservative. Everything is very conservative. And then very next year, it's hot pants and mini skirts and stuff. But so in '69, you got to remember uh, Woodstock. Woodstock. That was an amazing period. Amazing musical art. Uh, it included some war protest stuff and so on and so forth. So Vietnam's churning, Woodstock, the hippies, and all that's churning. There's starting to be a clash between the hippies and the construction workers, and all that stuff. It really wasn't a big deal, but but So I am put into a brand new school with about, 2/3 at least of the people. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know them, and there were definitely inner town rivalries. I lived in Wellsburg at the time, and Follinsby was like 3 miles up the road. I mean, you could almost see it from one town to the other, and they were the enemy. They were the enemy. But so all the enemy, everybody, we're just all put together, and we have this phenomenon going on culturally. Yeah, one thing I want to touch on though, the that at that particular time, there were race riots and all that stuff. To this day, if you go to West Virginia, where I'm from, and you suggest some kind of racism or something like that, they look at you like you're from another planet. I mean, seriously, I was brought up with zero racism, zero, none. And honestly, I was barely ever exposed to anybody that was black. We had, um, well, I'll just tell you, we had, I think, 7 black kids in the school, and there's like 2,000 people, you know, and they they were just like us, white kids. Well, you got all these Italians. If there was any racial thing in the high school, it was Italians. But but I went back last year to West Virginia, and two of the black kids in school at that time, they're now politicians. Uh, the mayor of Wellsburg is one of the black guys I went to school with. There's I think one of the other ones is a city councilman. Um, and so when I went back and I found out Jerry Nichols was the mayor, I thought, that's interesting because I live in the South now and always accused of racism being around here, but I don't see it here either. I'm sorry that you can say what you want, but there's very very little racial animosity here. But but I was raised with zero. I was raised with zero. Now we'll see later on what transpires. But well, now in my junior year, my mom and dad moved across the river to Steubenville. I don't know what was going on. We lived in Wellsburg. We moved to Steubenville. We just stayed there for a few months, but I had to go to Big Red High School, and Big Red High School, and it was only 5 miles from where I was raised, just right across the river. And Big Red High School was 50% black, and I didn't think anything of it, but there was some kind of big brawl broke out in the lunchroom one time, but you know, I didn't know anybody there. I didn't know anybody white, black. I don't know anybody. I was just the new kid trying to keep my head low. Didn't know what was going on, and I wanted to be back across the river in West Virginia with my friends, which in just a few months I was. But that didn't affect me in any wise as far as any kind of racism. And later on, went in the service. There was no racism. But, so as life goes on, you get exposure. You could change your views, but I was raised in a very very peaceful kind of society. They really were peaceful, and so we didn't experience any of the riots and the tumult that was going on over Vietnam and over racial things and all that. We were just young. We were having fun. Well, like I said, we had this huge amount of physical energy, and then you drop. I mean, at 15 years old, kaboom! Wow. I discovered girls, and you know, I've thought about this. I don't feel comfortable with a bunch of kiss and tell stuff, but there's a couple of those sweet West Virginia girls I have to mention, just because they were an amazing influence and part in my life. And when I was in high school, I chased a lot of girls and so on, but I only really had one girlfriend. For like a long term, for some reason. And at 15, um, we started hanging out in the streets and stuff. In Wellsboro, we'd hang out on the corner and so on. And my I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. My dear friend Nadine, she was just the absolute most beautiful little girl. Looked like Linda Ronstadt she had a chipped tooth. I think I know she got it fixed. I still talk to her today. She's still just as sweet as ever. But somehow, some way, she was the wild girl and I was the wild boy, and we sort of got wild, and she uh, caused me to discover something that would cause me very, very many difficulties in life. But that's life. Yeah, she was my first lover, and she was wild and crazy and fun and cute, and we were entering into the phase. Remember, 1968, 69, the motto turned to sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That was the expectations of life. Seriously, that sounds strange, and it's strange but true. So here we get this new school, all these new people. Uh, Suddenly the hormones are going crazy. Then there's this thing inside of me that makes me almost hyper aggressive, um, and so all that's going on at the same time, and I mean to tell you, it was fun. It really was. It was fun. We never we never just sat around. I didn't sleep around all day, or it, we sure didn't have any phones or anything to fool with. There's nothing like that. We had to occupy ourselves and did every day, and so it ended up it got really interesting. I wish I would have focused on education a little more, but you got to remember, I didn't get any guidance from home. I hope that some of y'all did, but most of my friends. Now, Gary Wilson, his mom and dad tried to guide him, and he no doubt has accomplished much in life. I hear he's in Florida or whatever, but he was a go getter. He was a sharp dude. But I've always been intelligent, but very rarely harnessed that ability. In high school, it was just the school part was to get by, and the rest of it was just social. It was just a play, and it was games with my buddies. We hung out. We had our little bowling team gang. The Scruff Dog, we call it. It was funny, but so all this stuff is going on, and then at home, it just wasn't good. It wasn't good. So I wasn't getting any guidance of any sort. There was I can't really talk about the spiritual aspect of my life because I didn't have any. I just didn't. I wasn't taught. I wasn't exposed. My dad, he was an Episcopalian. I mean, what's that? And every once in a while, he'd send us to the Episcopalian Sunday school, and we would glue some uh, macaroni shells on a cigar box, or make a cross out of burnt matches and all that. But that was it. There was nothing. It didn't make me think, and I was just playing. I didn't know what was going on. So there was no spiritual aspect. So everything is unbridled. You know, unbridled. I have no guidance from home. Uh, you know, the law. It just didn't seem to be serious. You know, it getting caught drinking and driving or something like that. It was didn't even think of it. You know, and the same thing. You know, the we started smoking pot and all that later on. Now, you know, 68 and 69, there was a big outburst of drugs, but I really didn't get exposed to it. You know, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll for me, the drug was Stroh's beer. You know, we drank beer and Boone's Farm. Oh, good lord! You know, there was some god awful orange screwdriver and Mad Dog 2020 and on down the line. Uh, it was dreadful, really, you know. But we started, you know, around 15 years old. That started. So we're introducing uh, alcohol consumption, which teenagers is just not a good thing. but but you know, uh, it wasn't as though anybody said it wasn't. Nobody told me that it wasn't a good thing. Honestly, you know. Now, my mom uh, and my stepdad, they're the ones I really lived with during that period, and neither one of them drank. You know, my mom, she ate a piece of whiskey cake at a family reunion kind of thing or whatever it was, and she got deathly ill. She was allergic to alcohol, and my stepdad, he didn't drink. I never saw him drink. You know, so that wasn't taught at home, but it was taught. You know, I mean, that was what we did. Us young boys, we'd get a little bit of money together. You know, we go out and steal pop bottles and stuff. We get a little bit of money together and stand out in front of Winsky's Market, or go down to here is a place on Buffalo Creek. If anybody is from my home area, Wellsburg, Follinsby, Brooke County, West Virginia. If you're from that area and you grew up back in my day, you knew who Red Sparringer was. There was this place called Sparringer's out on Buffalo Creek. It wasn't far, but this little old store and a little old dude with his little wire rim glasses, I remember him well. And he didn't care who you were, what you were. All he cared about was you had the money, you know. And he would sell a bottle of wine to a 13-year-old in a heartbeat if he had the money. So yeah, but that was what we did. We started this teenage binge drinking. You know, it wasn't like I was stealing the vodka from my mom and dad and all. You know, it wasn't anything like that because my mom and dad didn't have any vodka, and and I didn't necessarily drink excessively as a teenager because I didn't have the money. Later I started working and it became it started to become problematic pretty early. But all right, so we got this phenomenon going on, and I ended up at I think at 16 had my first real long term girlfriend, and her name is Bev. I'll say her last name Galliano. She was my girl for quite some time. I don't know how she put up with me. I was awful. I really was. That poor girl. Um, you know, I was this raging bag of good looking hormones. You know, I mean, I was a good looking boy. Seriously, and uh, so you get this good looking guy and all these crazy girls suddenly run around half dressed and it got interesting quick. And so I had my girlfriend, and Bev and I don't know how long. Uh, it was longer than anybody ever. I'll tell you that. And I loved her family. They loved me. Her mom was crazy. Her dad. drank too much, and mom would beat him with the skillet, catch him with some barmaid or something, and he worked at the mill, and they had lots of money, and it was basically work and drink. We hunted and stuff. I hunted with John, and most of the activities we had, we went to some bar somewhere, and that's that. I realized pretty early, even though you wouldn't have known it by knowing me, that I didn't want to work in any steel mill. You know, I knew I couldn't work at a steel mill. I knew that I couldn't work at a coal mine. I knew that. That was the two big money making alternatives, and so once again, there wasn't just I just didn't have any direction. Well, if you're not going to work in the coal mine, and you're not going to work in the steel mill, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, I didn't know. Didn't really. I didn't plan on it. I just sort of just assumed that I would be able to get by. Yeah, I'd be able to make my way out of work. I was strong. I was smart. It just it wasn't a concern. So I'm going through this period, and of course, uh, poor Bev. I can remember. Well, this was after I got out of high school. That poor girl. She it was classic. I was I'm gonna do a red herring here because of Bev. She put up with some stuff, but I had just gotten out of high school, started working at Eagle Manufacturing with my friend Don Kemp, and Don and I would drink to excess every day, every night. That's what we did. We get off work and go out and party. Well, we went out and partied, and it carried on till I think about like 4 o'clock in the morning or something. We had to get up at 6. It was awful. But I got up and I thought, oh man, I can't go to work. This is horrible. And he felt the same way. But my dear mother was in the middle of a paint project. So if I laid out of work and stayed home, I was going to have to paint the house. So at least at work I got paid. so so we got up and we went out to work, and before we got from the parking lot to the door, the entrance door, old Don, he just projectile pukes as he's walking by. And I thought, oh no, and he says, I can't do it. And I said, either can I. We turned around, and we drove up the road. There was what was it called? The Pine Motel. It was the Pine Motel. It was one of the few places that there was actually to spend the night. So we we skipped out of work and we went to the Pine Motel and rented a motel room, and we slept all day. And when it was time to get up, and when it was time to get off work, we got up and we went home. Well, I walked in the door, and I mean the screen door hadn't closed, and my mom was on me. She said, "So you didn't go to work today, huh?" And I thought, "Oh no, I'm busted." There was nothing I could say, and she just marched me into the dining room and points at that old paintbrush and roller and says, "Get busy." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." I was busted. I thought, "Oh no, how did she find this out?" But it wasn't long. I'm up on the ladder rolling, and I look down, and there's Bev, and she is looking up at me. And what happened was, we parked at the Pine Motel, and one of Bev's friends went by. I think she was on a school bus even. Went by and saw the car, and she tells Bev, "Hey, your boyfriend and his buddy were got something going on at the motel." And so I was immediately deemed guilty, just because of the situation. And so I looked down and I thought, oh my God. I said, even I wouldn't believe it, the story. Oh, we sort of just, and but she was like her mom, she could put up with a lot of stuff, and she did until I just wandered away one day. She's exactly like she was. I went to see her not long ago, and she's exactly like she was. She looks like she always looked, but she acts like her mother, and that's not bad. Her mother was a lot of fun. She was crazy, but she was a lot of fun, and I loved her, and she loved me. It was good. That's why we had a relationship for so long, because my family liked her and her family liked me, and I was still young and crazy. I mean, uh, wow, yeah. There was no taming the beast. I was wow. I mean, it was sort of ridiculous. It really was, because everything was so hyper. The hyper. The girls were as wild as I was. And it just seemed like that was what you did at that time. Now I don't believe that now. I mean, my kids, I beat my kids to death if they act like I did, you know. But uh, my mom and dad, I was tight on my kids, and they've ended up doing well in life. But my mom and dad, they didn't offer me any direction, so here I am, wild as a snake, and getting into scraps in school. I don't know if I told you about this one, but uh, you know, I got to get through high school here somehow. But a part of the high school was, I told you, the fighting and stuff. Well, I got a couple of good stories about it. Um, One of them was my two. I had a fight with a kid named Nick Berducci. He was Italian, Berducci. He wasn't a bad guy. He was a football player. He was a little cocky. He uh, he had a pretty high opinion of himself, I believe. But one night, I was at a party, and I was walking out, and I think I had a girlfriend or something. I was walking out, and I walked by that guy. He was sitting off to the side, and he said something very untoward. I thought, what did that guy just say? And I turned around. I said, "What'd you say?" And he repeated it, and I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I had a brand new shirt on. We back then we what was the material? The nylon shirts. They're nylon, did prints and stuff. Uh, so I had this brand new shirt, and I was poor. I didn't want to tear my stuff up, so I started taking my shirt off, and that rat he came at me. Well, that didn't last long, of course. That I treated him to a jolly good thrashing in short order. He he wasn't ready for it. And that was the thing. Uh, I was so violent and so fast and so strong, and came so hard that nobody was ever ready for what was coming. It's almost like hey, uh, you're fighting. Yeah, I am. Yeah, and I don't have any rules. I'll bite you. I'll kick you. I will indeed punch your stuff up in your throat. You know, or kick it. So old Nick, he lunged at me and stuff, and it wasn't long, and I didn't stand around and box people. I just got in their face, grabbed a hold of them. Back then, everybody had long hair. I'd snatch them by the hair, ride them down to the ground, and pound their head on the ground, and beat their face until something happened, and I'm glad that it did. There people would come along and say, hey, and they'd sort of pull you off of them. So old Nick, he's squalling like a little girl, in about 30 or 60 seconds. And so, a bunch of people were around. It was a big party. They pulled me off the guy, and I said, "All right, you jerk," and went on. Well, went to school, and they were talking. Yes, yes. The only reason that I was able to beat up the football player Italian boy was because he was intoxicated. He was drunk. Oh, I said, "Oh, you think so?" I said, "Well, just tell him if he wants to do it again, let me know." And so we did. We had an arrangement, and it ended up that, it was always some of his friends were going to fight with some of my friends. All this stuff was going on, but it was me and him, and he he knew. I think his buddies put him up to this because he couldn't possibly have wanted that again. But that's what they said, and I said, okay, I'll accommodate you. And so we were supposed to fight behind the school uh, after the basketball game. So, went to the school and everything. Well, after the basketball game, somehow, some way, the cops got onto it that there was supposed to be some sort of a dispute, and so they're hanging out back there behind the school, and so people say, hey, we gotta go somewhere else, and so we ended up, and there's I don't know how many 5 or 6 carloads of people, I don't know, but we ended up going to the Follansbee football field, and we went out to the middle of the football field. It was classic. It was classic. And those guys formed a circle, and me and Nick were in the middle, and I looked over at him, and I knew he didn't have a chance. He was scared. I looked in his eyes, and I saw fear. I saw weakness, and I said, "Are you ready?" And he said, "Yeah." So here I come. I went at him, and of course, I placed a very well placed kick between his legs and bent him over, and then threw him down and stomped him, and his buddies, all his friends, my friends, they're all there. Okay, he was screaming, get him off, because he felt that feeling for the second time, and it wasn't good, and I I was putting it on him pretty good too. Well, so oh, my poor brother Rob, I love Rob. He passed away last year. Unfortunately, he was a good man, but he, for some reason, when they started to pull me off of him, he grabbed one of the guys, and he just a little dude. Jimmy Anderosi was his name. I didn't know whether I should have had a discussion with him over it or not, but Jimmy Anderosi was trying to pull me off his buddy, Anderosi, Berducci, these names they sound. There was one of the Lombardis and Camaletti, all these Italian guys, and and so Rob grabbed him and swirled him around to let him go, and old Jimmy poked him in the eye with his class ring. It cut his eye. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a scratch on me. I took care of business short order. But yeah, but poor Rob, he has a big black eye. So that was fun. That was fun. That was one of the things that sort of I don't know. It helped establish a little bit of the teenage cred, for lack of a better term. Oh, just being a crazy punk. And then another time, and I forget who I was with, but I had gone to the drive-in theater in Wintersville, Ohio, and driving back, somebody got on my tail and kept flashing their brights and stuff. Of course, my fuse is short. My 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 fuse is very short. Well, this guy was clowning around, whatever, and so he finally goes flying around me. Well, so I just got on his tail and started giving him the price. Well, he he stopped at a red light, and he got out of his car, and I said, "Oh boy, I'm glad to see this." I let him get up to the door, that old trick, let him get up to the door, and then open it and smack him with it. But it was really late, and this was a 4-lane road we're on. So we're at this red light. This guy gets out, and I smack him with the door, and I get out, and and we're just going at it right between the cars, between our cars, and I had him down. It was the typical routine. I had him down, had both hands curled up in his hair, and was bouncing his head off the concrete, and my my date. I can't remember who it was. I thought it was Bev, but she said it wasn't her. My date. Well, I'm in this blacked out sort of kind of rage that I would go into, and she says, Ronnie, got my attention, and I glanced up and she says, "What are you doing?" That was all it took. That rat guy that I was pounding slid. I was a little high on him, but I had his hair, so it didn't make any difference. Well, when I sort of slacked off on the hair, he slipped out between my legs, and we had to go back at it again. So this guy, he started trying to pull me out into where the traffic was. We were in between the cars doing fine. And there was a sidewalk over there, and we could have gone over there. But he was trying to pull out of the traffic, so he stupid, because later in life I didn't see it, but there were 3 guys got killed fighting in the street, in downstate West Virginia when I was going to refrigeration school. But anyway, so so I'm having to grab this guy, and instead of trying to beat him up, I'm trying to pull him back. And that rat, he reached up, and he scratched my face, and I didn't usually come out with a scratch, but he clawed my face, and I thought, oh man. Well, I threw him on the hood of the car and was putting it on him, and sure enough, a cop pulled up behind, and I just stopped. I just let him go, and nonchalantly went around and got in my car and sat down, and he was in between the cars. I had torn his necklace off. He was looking for his necklace. The cop came up. I went, yeah. And finally, okay. He said he told the cop, "Oh, I dropped my necklace." And so I left. I thought, I'm not messing with this guy. I'm just going on. But that was fun. It really was. Classic road rage thing. Nobody really got hurt. I'm sure he felt pretty bad in the morning. And oh, that scratch on my face, it ticked me off because it would give the appearance that he got me a little bit, but he didn't. so but these were fairly common events, little things like that. So I try to figure out all of the different aspects. The I don't want to dwell on the girls because the whole kissing and telling it's sort of irrelevant. But yeah, there was the introduction of alcohol, which was not good, and the introduction of the hormones, which was hard to do, and the DNA. So basically, it ended up that high school was fun. My friends were fun. We really we did a lot of vandalism and stuff like that. All right, but now let's let's go on to 16. Okay, 16. At 16 years old, you can get your driver's license. Ooh, and I'm telling you, this was a much anticipated event because with the driver's license, even though none of my friends had a car, we would borrow the parents' car. That was our means of transportation. We try to get the car. Try to get the car, and and so I I got my driver's license at 16, and I was so excited. And I had one of the weirdest events because of it. And I'll tell you what happened. Um, at 16, I just got my driver's license, and Pap, my stepdad, Kay, pulled one of his. He would have these mental breakdown things, and he got sent to Weston, which is home of the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. It was that was the name of it, and I have since then I have gone back there on three different occasions. It's a museum now, and I have gone back there, and it still creeps me out. But what happened was I get my driver's license, and my mom comes to me, and Pat was getting locked up in Weston, so he was shipped off, right? He's gone down to Weston. They've locked him up. It's the loony bin. It indeed is the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. And so he's going down there, and that was the mental health at the time. And so I drove my mom down there, and we went late, and they didn't have all the interstates and things back then. I think you had to go down Route 19, but you went for a long ways on these country roads. So I drove through the night, and we got there probably, maybe like 4:30, uh, almost starting to get light and all that. We got there in the parking lot, and my mom says, "Well, we're a little early. We'll just sit here and wait until they open the building up." So I parked in the front, and okay, let's wait. And I thought maybe I'll take a little nap. And I'm telling you, that was the creepiest place. There was screaming and howling and moaning and wailing going on. People, you could hear them through the windows and out the windows and all that. It was crazy. And I thought, what in the world is going on here? I assumed it was going to be a hospital. I didn't think it was going to be, this raving, this wild stuff. Well, so I'm sitting there, and the sun comes up, and man, my mom says I'm gonna go in, and she went in. She disappeared. She leaves me there, sitting in the parking lot. I never did go in the place. I wish I would have. I'm sure it would have been interesting. The tour of it is unreal. But so I'm sitting out there, and I'm telling you, I got so creeped out. They pulled up with it was a little tractor and had a wagon, and about 8 guys sitting in the back of this wagon, and they all jumped out. Maybe six. I take it back. 6 guys. They jumped out of this wagon, and they all just started picking up papers and emptying trash and stuff. Nobody spoke. I thought, well, what's this? These guys. Well, uh, come to find out, these fellows had lobotomies. They did a lot of, later research. They did a lot of lobotomies at this uh, at this asylum, and so these dudes, they were zombies. So you could tell, what is this? And then had a big long line. Probably it seemed like there was like 40, 50 people walking, and they're wearing gowns, and they had masks on, cloth masks, and I found out that that was the TB ward. They had a tuberculosis ward, and those are the tuberculosis patients going to eat. I thought, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was a bizarre experience, and poor Pap, they gave him they put him in ice water. They gave him electric shock treatments, and then they gave him some niacin, a mega dose of vitamins or something. I mean, they did all kinds of stuff. It didn't help him any. Year, Years later, he was locked up in the loony ward in Manassas, Virginia, and the psychiatrist said, "Who diagnosed you with schizophrenia?" And he said, "Oh, this doctor back from way back when." And she said, "Mr. Deskin, you're not schizophrenic." She says, "You just have a terrible personality. All you care about yourself. You need to get out and be social." And I think that was the end of his spells. That was the last time he was ever in. Yeah, that was yeah, that was funny. That was funny, but I think she was on to something. It was weird, but I don't know. I don't know. Irrelevant, I reckon. Yeah, but that was just another thing. So we started getting cars, and now the range thing starts to happen. We can get out and we can go places and things like that. But we really didn't have a reliable means of transportation hardly ever. We still hitchhiked all the time. We'd hitchhike to get places. But now we had friends that had cars, and so uh, uh, they would sort of link up. We got around, and it was fine. But there were times when we didn't have a car and we wanted to do something. Aha. So how do we get a car? Well, this is terrible but true. So we had a couple of our friends. One was Mitch Wade. Old Mitch, he was always up to something. He was always up to something, and his mom worked at the Elby's restaurant in Weirton, and they had a car that if you just turned the key thing on the steering wheel, you didn't have to have a key in it. If you just turned it, it would start. So we would, get like there'd be like three or four of us usually, and we would hitchhike up to Weirton to where Mrs. Wade worked at Elby's, and we would steal the car out of the parking lot of Elby's, and she never did catch us, but we would take her car and go out and Mitch he was he was a jerk. He couldn't drive. He was terrible. We were only 16. He couldn't drive. He had something. I don't like anybody in front of me and I don't like anybody behind me. So he was always swerving and doing stuff. Well, we stole his mama's car, and he flew around some people and almost caused them to wreck. I mean, he pulled right in front of them, and so uh, we went flying through the middle of Wellsburg, West Virginia, and right on the main highway, getting down towards almost to the junior high, we ran out of gas. Eek. That was never in our plans. Gas, gas. It was a magical thing. It just happened. So we ran out of gas. Well, this car that Mitch almost ran off the road pulls up in front of us. And man, this guy got out and he was hopping mad. I don't blame him because Mitch, he scared me. I didn't like it. And so he hops out of his car. You can see he's steaming mad. Oh, Mitch, he be bad. He jumped out of the car and he goes towards that guy, and that guy smacked him. And I mean, it knocked him out cold. He was gone. And that guy, he was older. I don't know what his deal was, but he was hostile. And he said, "Any of you other guys want any of this?" And I mean, no, man, because I felt bad being with Mitch. He was such a jerk. So he bounced off the concrete and stuff. The guy left. He left satisfied. And old Mitch came to, and we had no gas. We had no money, so we took off with a gas can and a hose, and we went out and siphoned somebody's gas. One of the neighbors around there. And we got the car back in time for Mrs. Wade to drive home, But yeah, see there's all kind of, we were always into some stuff. Always. Jimmy George, who later became a sheriff, uh, that was a good job for him, though, I'm sure. But he used to help. We would steal his mom and dad's car, and we would just put it in gear, and the driveway had a pretty good slant on it. We just put it in gear and roll it backwards, and never even had to start it, and take it and just ride around and do whatever we do, and never got caught with that one either, you know. But we didn't steal my car. We didn't steal Gary Wilson's car or Tom Whiteman. You know, it was Jimmy and Mitch. They were the ones with the cars stealing. Yeah, but now there were times that I would. My mom would say, "Oh, your brother could have the car," because we were one, two, three, and I remember Rick had just gotten his license, so I was probably around a senior, and we went to some party in Short Creek, and I reconnoitered. Rick was given the car my mom, but I took it from him. I say took it. I don't know how I got it from him. I don't know. I had a line on some girls or something. I forget, but he let me take it. Well, we took off with these girls. I didn't even know who they were really, and one of them had left her shoes at the party. She says, "I'm going to go back and get my shoes." So I pulled the car back in the where it was, and she goes back in to get her shoes, and I'm just sitting there, just waiting. We're just at a party, and there's some alcohol, and got some girls in the car. Life is good, and up over the hill, I see it. Oh boy, here comes some young fellow, uh, full of himself, and seemed as though he had some sort of vendetta. And yeah, he was one of the ones that walked up. He walked up to my door and reached in to grab me and got a face full of door. Yeah, poor guy. I may have told this story already, but I I, I tell my stories, and I've been recounting in my mind so many things. I might repeat myself, but whatever. It's my story. I can repeat myself if I want, I guess. But so yeah, that poor boy. He didn't know what hit him. And I I don't know the whole thing. His girlfriend got in the car with several people and whatever. You want to be a jerk? I got something for you. Was what the plan was back then. But all right. So that was just another little incident. So I go through high school and just having a good time. Having a good time. The 69 was tumultuous, of course, but 70, 71. Uh, in my junior year, we get the driver's license and stuff, and things start to change. And my freshman year, I told you I played football, but my sophomore year, I had the opportunity to work. So we have to. It's not just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You got to pay for this stuff. And my family was poor. I didn't necessarily feel poor, but every once in a while it sort of interfered. Every once in a while. And like if there were big holidays, we didn't get a bunch of stuff for Christmas and birthdays and all that. We were too poor for that. My my dad and my stepdad really didn't get the financial ball rolling until later in life, and so we were pretty poor. I remember my gym uniform. I lived in Wellsburg, and I'm going to Brook, but my gym uniform cost like $4, and my dad said I just don't have it. I thought, what am I going to do? I gotta have this gym uniform. And he said, no, I just don't have it. And I said, I couldn't accept that. You know, I mean, to me, well, if you don't have it, well, obviously you need to get it. You know, somebody needs to work here. So at 15, I had the opportunity to start working. It was in 1970 because that's when I started paying Social Security, and I started working in the summertime. And so instead of playing football, I worked. There was some sort of a jobs thing that I worked for the school, and and did the floors at the high school and cleaned up whatever they wanted us to do. We were just laborers, and so introduced a little bit of money because when it came time for school, the new clothes and stuff, there's 5 kids in my family. My mom and dad were broke, and so the new clothes were very very few and far between. And so I wanted to buy my own, which I did, So that started. I started working, and in the summertime, and using that money. And of course, that a young man, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to work, find out the relationship between money and work, and what money does for you. So I was going down that road. I remember I took a part time job at the Dairy Queen in Wintersville. Worked there 6 days part time, and by the time I got my check, it was only $18. But man, yeah, I was glad to see the 18. But I didn't work there though. I didn't like that guy. Yeah, I couldn't deal with him. But so the financial awareness is beginning to come. So but I didn't feel necessarily poor. Now I knew that I was poorer than some. I mean that was obvious. There were some people that they lived in big old nice houses and stuff, and I was friends with them and all that. Because I don't feel as though there was a lot of social stratification as far as money went. I didn't really think about it. Um, so let's see what else would be relevant uh, during that time period. Oh dear. How about the academic pursuits? None. It just we had to do a term paper, and I borrowed or bought the term paper from somebody, and persuaded some girl to type it for me, and and all that. So and like with math, I didn't really care for it. Algebra and geometry, I didn't really care for. And, and later in life, I had to re-care for it, but I didn't really care for it, so I just sort of skated along. I'd cheat, get somebody's homework, look on somebody else's test or whatever, and put just enough effort into things to get by. I mean, I was a B plus student, but I'm capable of much more. Let's put it that way. And I appreciate the people that did discipline themselves. Gary Wilson. I told you, there were some people. Terry Anderosi, the sweet little girl from 6th grade. She was super disciplined and smart. Oh, what was that? Regina Lindsay. Oh yeah, she was something. As far as smart, there's a lot of girls, but I don't know. I ended up sort of scared of the good girls, and attracted to the ones that were a little on the wild side. But of course, I was a little on the wild side. They were a little on the wild side, so it worked out. I wasn't gonna go to a Mensa meeting, so it was all well and good. All right, so in my junior year, I may have mentioned this, but my dad moved across the river, and that made me really realize how much I needed my friends, and I would skip school every Friday, and I would hitchhike. I would walk over to the bridge that went across the Ohio River, and I would hitchhike. Well, I'd walk across the river, and then hitchhike at the West Virginia side, go to my old school, and meet my meet my buddies, and we would skip and go do something. So that went on for a little while. I really I didn't like Steubenville. I didn't like being away from my friends. We didn't have all the communication. We didn't have all the cell phones and all that stuff. I felt really isolated, because I I was tight with my friends. You know, they were we were good to one another. Really, we entertained each other. We protected each other. We had a lot of fun. You know, we played all manner of sports, all kinds of things. That's interesting. So I told you we were rough boys, but twice I messed myself up playing football. We played football so hard. We played like the high school, college pros. Well, I mean, we knocked each other around and didn't have any pads or helmets. So every once in a while, there are two times in particular that that I messed myself up. We just played hard. And one time, it was at the pool, the football field there. There was a little football field we played with, and old Mitch Wade once again. There was a punt that was way up in the air. He was standing there waiting for it, and I thought, I got him. And I went flying through the air and hit him in the knees just as the ball hit him, and it messed me up. It gave me amnesia. Yeah, it was pretty weird. It gave me amnesia, and the only thing I could remember from that night was my mom said she took me to the emergency room, and all I remember is just looking down at my arm and some needle was going in it, and that was the last thing. But that and then man, when I lived in Louise, once again, in the backyard, I forget who it was that I tackled like that. But I went flying through the air face first into somebody's knees, and they kneed me in the mouth, and it it messed me up. It pushed my front tooth, pushed it straight back, and tore a big gash in my lip. I mean, my lip was swollen out probably close to 2 inches. I looked like a duck-billed platypus. And and what happened was it broke the bone in my palate, my tooth, when I took the knee and knocked the tooth back, broke the bone in my palate. Well, my dad found some guy that would look at it and all that, and he made a cast and stuck my tooth back up there and all that. But boy, I messed my face up. I was torn up. I really was, and it was my fault. He was just standing there, and I had to come flying through the air like a human missile. It hurt me, not him. But yeah, okay. So we moved back from Ohio for that little short stint. Just 2 3 months. It wasn't long. We moved back, but we moved back to Louise. We went back to the coal camp that my family was from. My grandmother had moved out of her house, and we moved into it. So the house that we stayed at when we were kids. Now my stepdad bought it. I assume he bought it. He came in possession of it somehow, and so we're back at the house, and it was good. I always liked Louise, the creek, the ball field, the people, the dirt road, the railroad tracks, the railroad tracks. It was a big part of life because the tracks were so close to the house. When a train went by, you couldn't hear the TV and you couldn't hear one another. So when a train went by, everybody just stopped talking, and you just had to wait. And when the train finally finished, then you'd finish your sentence. But the train was a part of life, and it was interesting. When I was young, uh, the train tracks, there'd be trains on there, just sitting and all that. But there were hobos, and these guys. My grandmother would feed them. She would help them out and all that because we were right by the tracks, and they sort of they spread that information as you went along. So there would be guys from the train tracks come up to the house every once in a while, but uh, it was. I remember one time I was walking past a train, and I looked over and on the shelf, it was like a shelf under this car. I think it was a hopper car, a solid car with a couple of chutes coming down the bottom. A hopper car, we called it. And this guy was laying under there, and I looked over there, and he was completely gray from riding under there, the dust getting kicked up and everything. And all I could see was his eyes, and it scared me to death. That guy, he spooked me bad. But yeah, but so there were hobos along the tracks, and we also well, there's a lot of things back then that were I thought cool. You know, we had some uh, peddlers would come along. A guy would he'd be carrying like two suitcases, and he would come and he would come to my grandmother's house, and he'd open up his suitcases and start laying his stuff out, and he had handkerchiefs, and you know he had just a lot of just a little miscellaneous. He sold a few socks and whatever, just stuff, you know. And my grandmother would always buy stuff from him, and she really she cared about people, you know. She cared about the peddlers. She cared about the hobos, you know, the people riding the rails and stuff. She was a sweet lady, really sweet. This was my stepdad's mother, Evelyn Smith. We called Dum Dum. And yeah, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, and well, when we moved out there, another thing that went on that is extraordinary today that you know my grandkids probably won't imagine. The insurance guy would come to the house every month. Some guy he'd pull up and had his little satchel, and he'd come sit down, and my mom would pay him whatever the insurance was. You know, it was life insurance, and it wasn't much. But one time our dog, another thing you know in life is the pets. We didn't really have. We had a little dog named Poochie, and Poochie was a cute little long haired. Oh, I look maybe some dachshund somewhere along the line, but you know not a real big dog. And then she had puppies, and we kept one, and he was Butch, and he was a little fatter, you know. But those dogs, they were a team. You came on our property, and they would try to get you. And old Poochie got in front of the insurance man, barked at him, and he stopped. And Butch came up and bit him on the butt. And oh my, he was upset. So he comes in the house. I remember he dropped his drawers in the kitchen. I hope I'm not telling these stories over and over, but he dropped his drawers in the kitchen, and I thought, what in the world, you know? The big old man. I thought he was a big sissy, but yeah, that the insurance man. That was another phenomenon. Peddlers and hobos and insurance men. Yeah, yeah, life is interesting. There's always something. And you know, of course, and like I said, we hunted a lot. We would hunt and uh, just go up over the hill with a shotgun and shoot rabbits. You know, we didn't have any dogs or anything back then. We just have fun and shoot rabbits. You know, we hunted deer a little bit later on, but never did hunt successfully. You know, I don't know that we would have known what to do with one if we got it, but yeah. So okay, so I'm losing track of my time. I probably ought to cut this episode here because we're gonna have to get towards the end of high school and and see what's going on because life gets exciting and you won't believe some of the stuff, of course. But I'll tell you one thing for certain: I'm telling the truth, you know. And if I tell on somebody, they think I'm lying. It's just my recollection, you know. And maybe it'll help somebody avoid something, you know, in life. Don't let your kids drink when they're kids. Oh yeah, and I never did explain that. Like when I started working, my mom would take me and my friends down to Foodland to cash our paychecks. And when we cashed our paychecks, she would buy us anything we wanted. And so we would get beer and cigarettes and all that stuff, and put it in a cart and go cash the check. And then we went through the line. She paid for everything, well, with my money, but that was where it started. So man, here we were, sort of binge drinking, and then start working, and my mom starts buying this stuff for me. So ended up smoking like a punk on the corner at 15, um, drinking beer, and being stupid, because that's all. When you're 15 years old drinking beer, you're gonna be stupid, and we were stupid. But yeah, but it just it started getting pervasive. The drinking, the drinking, and then after school, that was just like that was all we did. That was our hobby, and it was sad. But yeah, so my mom would buy us beer and cigarettes, and anything we wanted, and her philosophy was simply, well, it's your money. You can do what you want with it. If you work, you can do what you want with the spoils of your labor. Well, and that was cool. And then of course, Doug Bowman and Roxanne and their sweet, sweet little sister. Oh man, those girls are funny. But we would go over to their house, and they're the same way. I said, we don't care what you do. We want you to just stay here. They had a pool table downstairs, so we were getting drunk over at Bo's house, and my mom was buying beer. We were underage, but we would get a little money, and find we just stand in front of the store and say, hey, buy me a 12 pack. I don't, or 6 pack. I don't know if they had 12 packs back then. I don't think so initially, but eventually it came along. But so we're introducing all this alcohol, and of course, then we immediately started this drunk driving stuff, and it was not good. When I was what would have been 18? No, it would have been 16. Yeah, yeah. I borrowed my mom's car. She told me no, but I begged her, and she said okay. And we went out, and me and my buddies and Nadine came along, who was just sweet as a button, but she was wild as a snake, and so she drank wine and puked in my car. So I thought, oh no, now what? So I'm gonna go drop everybody off, and me and Nadine going down to some car wash and cleaning this out of here, because my mom and dad would kill me. Bring that car back full of puke, especially old nasty wine puke, little sour stuff. So um, I had one more person to drop off, Gary Wilson, and had to make a left and sort of stop on the highway, and some guy came up behind me. He was drunk. He had an accident farther down the road, and the cops let him go. But he was drunk, and he plowed into the back end of my mom's little car and totaled it. It didn't hurt me, and didn't hurt Gary or Nadine, but totaled my mom's car, and she never did forgive me for that. She loved that little car. My dad fixed it up. He got a block of wood on the gas pedal so she could reach it. He used hose clamps, put a block of wood so she could reach the gas pedal. And it was a small car, Fairlane, and yeah, it got totaled. So uh, my dad, next day we had another car. Next day, I was stunned. I thought, oh my goodness, I don't. They didn't know. I don't think they didn't know. I'm sure they didn't. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know that I was drinking, that my friends were drinking, that there was puke in the car, and all that. They didn't know any of that stuff. They just know that somebody hit me when I was making a turn. But my mom wasn't happy about it regardless. She was not happy. But so the next day we had the other car, and my dad says, "Come on, going to go for a ride." So he gives me the keys. We get in the car and take off. drove around a little bit, for about 15 or 20 minutes, whatever. Went back home. He says, okay. He said, I just wanted to make sure you weren't scared of driving. Now, don't ask us to borrow the car ever again. Which eventually we got away with it. They calmed down. Oh yeah, yeah, they calmed down. But yeah, I ended up at 18. Yeah, right after school, I got that '69 Mustang and wrecked it. Once again, drinking and driving, racing, wrecked it, totaled it. Yeah, well, that was the last car I ever wrecked, so that was good. Yeah, the rest of my life, the only the only big run-in with the law I've had is I got a ticket in Austin, Texas for uh, riding a moped without a moped endorsement. That was my big crime. That's my criminal history right now. Boy, I'm telling you though, there should have been some kind of intervention on me because man, we would get together and drink and we would be blind. I mean, there's those old narrow roads. I am just shocked that I didn't get put in jail or hurt somebody or hurt myself, and just being crazy. And you got this crazy testosterone going on, this aggression. Add a little beer, and yahoo! Now we got this car, you know. Especially a Mustang, a 351. Yeah, baby, let's go. Crash. It didn't take long either, just a few months. So yeah, so life, life is going on, and I have to say, like with my kids, I encourage them to think about what do you want to do in your life. What do you want to do in your life, with your life, and so on, and what's your plan to attain that goal. And they have all listened, you know, and they've all worked hard. The boys and the girls. I got 5 kids. They've all been extremely hardworking and diligent, and they're accomplished in life. In my opinion, yeah, my humble opinion, they're productive members of society, and their kids are great. My grandkids are great, and they live a disciplined life, and I taught them that, but I did not have that. And I knew it, I mean, I knew later in life, I thought, man, why didn't somebody jerk a knot in my tail? Because, like, my mom was buying me beer at 15, and by my mid 20s, I'm just a raging alcoholic. I really was. And, it was sad, and I'm glad that none of my kids had to deal with anything like that. They're all very moderate in their lives and everything, and I'm glad. It certainly it certainly is a little more peaceful. It's peaceful, and I've always had a tendency. I don't care about material things much at all. I was raised poor West Virginia Creek boy, and I still think like that. I just don't. I have accumulated over my life a bunch of stuff, and I've gotten rid of almost all of it. Really, I mean, I have arrived at a place of minimalism. Where I don't have a lot of stuff, and don't have a lot of worries, and it suits me fine. It really does. It's good. But the beginning of life, the high school years, the 68 through 72 and all that, it it was good. It really was. It was excellent. A lot of good friends, a lot of good times. A lot of physical activity, a lot of good music. Girls were fun. They loved me and I loved them. I still do. I'm telling you, I have contact. Maybe some of them will be listening, but uh, I have Facebook contact with some of those girls from Brook High, and I'm telling you, they're amazing. They're amazing. They really are. They are so sweet, so beautiful, and it's just a blessing to be able to communicate with them a little bit every once in a while, even though I'll never see them. You know, the class reunion was great, but that was probably the end of the road for that stuff. Um, but you never know what life has in store. You never know. All right, so we're gonna have to. I'm living in Louise, and we're coming down to the end of high school. You know, and still no idea what I want to be when I grow up. And but it's coming. It's right here. You know, and ended up, like I said, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The drug was Stroh's beer until 1972 graduation. And we had a senior assembly. And before the senior assembly, some of us rowdy boys, we slipped off in somebody's car, I'm not sure. And we went up this little road over by the Coral Castle. We went up, I forget what it went up some mine road or whatever, but it was a dirt road. And we drove up there before this senior assembly, and there was a bunch of guys up there, and we had beer, and they had weed, so we smoked the weed, and I'd smoked weed several times, but never affected me, because the quality was real low, and so I've always been somebody that was sort of hard to sedate. If I get a tooth pulled, somebody else gets one shot, and I have to get four, so it's hard to sedate me, and so this puffing this old Mexican weed wasn't affecting me in the least bit. Nothing. And we got up that road and somebody handed me this. I just smoked it just like I always did. And boy, I walked in that assembly and wow, I thought, what in the world is going on? And and you got to remember, the way it was back then. They had a band, and the band was uh, a group of teachers. And I mean, they were getting it, they were rocking out, and so in there, and remember this 68 to 72, the strobe light, and the lights are flashing and all this stuff, and that was my first introduction to actually drugs. I mean, I actually got high, and well, but once again, that was something that was sort of like the girls. You touched it off and away you go. So I ended up with an awareness now, and things changed. So I'm going to stop now, and I think next episode we're going to graduate and head out into life. It's about time. I need to be responsible. I'm still not overly responsible, but life is very good. Thank you so much, and I love my family. I love my friends. I hope you all are entertained, and really, I'm sort of portraying myself as a little crazy and a bit of a rat with the girls and an extremist with the alcohol and all that, and that was going on, but it didn't last forever. I finally grew up at some stage, but it's going to take me a couple of years here. So we're going to start going out on some adventures here. The graduation, the world opens up. It's a big world, and before it's over, I'm going to go around it a dozen times. And right now, though, I'm still the creek boy, hanging out on the creek, having fun, fighting and fooling with the girls, and drinking beer and camping and hiking and hitchhiking and stealing cars and just vandalizing, just having a regular old time. Just that's what us boys did back then. So I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.